Dr. Ryan. Hi, I'm No Excuse Charlie, blah, blah, blah.
You're Charlie, I'm Ryan.
Did I say I'm Charlie, you're Ryan?
No.
You're Charlie, I'm Ryan?
No, I'm just kidding. You were just,
And then that's a great place to start because a lot of people know by this point, you know, especially with my social media posting, that you and I do a lot of work together. And anytime I bring you up, people always say, oh, is that the guy that tortures you or ties you to the table or has that weird thing strapped to your head? So they know that you and I obviously have a professional working relationship, but they don't know what that encompasses because, you know, I talk about mentorship, I talk about chiropractic care, I talk about, you know, the No Excuse Nation, different things that we have going on. So, like I said, I think that's a great place for us to start.
You know, I think the biggest thing I'd like to hit on at some point is how I would have anything to do with your population. I have an answer to that. Your answer may be different and may even be better. My biggest answer is this, and this can even be it. Like,
let's ask this question first.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so this will be Dr. Ryan. Hi, I'm No Excuse Charlie. Blah blah blah.
You're Charlie, I'm Ryan.
Did I say I'm Charlie, you're Ryan?
No.
You're Charlie, I'm Ryan?
No, I'm just kidding. You were just,
And then, welcome to episode 1 of Coffee with the Doc. I'm Dr. Ryan Livingston, and then I say, I'm No Excuse Charlie, and...
I'll Coffee with the Doc. But it's almost more of your show. But you can't have Coffee with the Doc without the Doc.
The Doc.
Or you could just have different doctors on it.
Yeah.
I have research articles, and I would like put them on the wall somewhere. The little like setup on the wall with like flyers they could take, and they print them out in nice color flyers. And the point was, on top of table talk with the patients, educating them on spinal structure and why that's so important, was something new every week, because you can keep talking to them, but if there's not something new and exciting every week or every couple weeks,
yeah,
you got to keep it fun for someone coming in all the time.
Cool.
And that was just one of the little things. Not everyone's going to give a crap about research.
They should, but you're right.
But there's going to, I guarantee, no matter who doesn't like research, there's going to be an article out of all the ones that we put up that someone's going to be like, oh crap. They're going to either think of someone or they're going to be like, oh, that applies to me, and they're going to take it.
How much time are we looking at for this? Okay, I'll just set a stopwatch.
Let's almost practice not saying enough.
Okay.
I'll keep it really silly. I like to talk fast because I like when Zeno talks fast, and I end up speeding up the fucking podcast anyway. Everything. I hate Spotify because you can't speed things up. I listen at probably 2 times speed on average.
That's great.
So like, you know, number one predictor, I just posted on my live feed. The number one predictor for living in a nursing home and independent quality of life independence, which is spinal
care.
Yeah, spinal alignment, like down from that. I'm Dr. Ryan Livingston, and this is
No Excuse Charlie.
We're here on the Coffee with the Doc. So our purpose and goal of this podcast and webinar is to disseminate information to you guys, to the No Excuse Nation culture, and athletes and sports performance connoisseurs of all kinds out there. Lots of athletes have the goal of performance, but they don't know what they don't know. And if you don't know what you don't know, that means you can't know that you don't know. So we're here to disseminate and to break down those things that you're unaware of, to give you biohacks, to give you our tips and tricks to success. We're going to give you all kinds of tools, from financial to sports performance to health related things to our favorite, biohacking. So stay tuned.
Can I talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So when I first posted, I made an Instagram post about, our connection and what we had. We had plans with Coffee with the Doc, and I had a lot of people asking about what it's going to be, what sort of things you and I do together. So I think that's a great place to start, because a lot of people know by this point, especially with my social media posting, that you and I do a lot of work together. And anytime I bring you up, people always say, oh, is that the guy that tortures you or ties you to the table or has that weird thing strapped to your head? So they know that you and I obviously have a professional working relationship, but they don't know what that encompasses because, you know, I talk about mentorship, I talk about chiropractic care, I talk about, you know, the no excuse nation and different things that we have going on. So like I said, I think that's a great place for us to start when we answer questions. The first question we actually got was from Steve, and Steve asked, what plans do you two have together?
Okay, that's a good question. That one?
Yeah, I'll start.
I guess.
We kind of have to give like a little bit of a background, you know, to foray into this. So Dr. Livingston and I met through mutual friends several years ago. Long story short, you know, you were practicing in a clinic 3,000 miles away, worked your way back home to the area you grew up in, which coincidentally enough wasn't that far from me, was in driving distance. And you and I kind of had like a professional working relationship where we talked, you know, about what we like to consider high level things over the years, but unfortunately we didn't have the opportunity to sync up in person very often just because of the distance. You moved back home, you know, we hooked up and kind of thought there should be some mutualism here with the things that you do and the things that I do. You being a chiropractor who cares for people's health and also your work in nutrition. Me being a scholarship trainer who works with a student athlete population predominantly and also works with nutrition. There's a lot of synergy between that. So, you know, Dr. Ryan and I kind of talked and said, well, you know, you have this group of athletes that you train, you know, at elite level. I have, you know, the skill set and the research and the experience to give care at an elite level. So there has to be some form of mutualism where we can find common barriers between, you know, problems that student athletes have and essentially things that you can fix.
Right. That's a good explanation. I think the biggest benefit that people can glean from this, from our interactions together, is, you know, our background was, or the way we met was definitely athletics and performance, and it happened through bodybuilding.
Yep.
So that's what I always knew about. I always knew you from was the most conditioned athlete in this lineup of people that you worked with, and I always heard that you were the one that like basically put the most effort in.
I try to.
So that, I mean, that speaks volumes in itself. Plus, you looked the best out of everyone, which, you know, doesn't always mean that person looks the best or is the best just because they put in a lot of effort, which is one of the things we like to talk about. And I'm definitely going to teach you guys a lot about is productivity, not being busy. And yes, I still say I'm busy a lot, unfortunately, but I try to replace that with cancel, I'm not busy, I'm productive, because there's two totally different things.
I like that, how they seem synonymous, but there's definitely some misalignment between those two. So I think that ultimately what it boiled down to is you and I had a lot of commonalities in how we think, how we act, how we're productive, not busy. And it was almost like, you know, a perfect marriage in a sense, just because we felt like the population of people that come to you and the population that come to me, we have similar mindsets and we each have a unique skill set to we can help those people find their optimal level of health. And I think that that's where there tends to be some muddy water for people and as far as clarity goes, because, you know, and even me, I don't even know if I have a complete working definition of it, which kind of transitions into one of the other questions we have. Sarah asked what the most underrated aspect of health is. And before we get to that question by Sarah, I think we need to kind of figure out what is health, because I know that it's super comprehensive, and, you know, if you were to write a working definition of what health is, I feel like, believe it or not, I think it would be pretty subjective, because people's interpretation of what health means to them is super, super different. So before we get to Sarah's question, how would we define health? Because I think that's important for the listeners.
Most of my research is gathered on Americans, and of course clinical data is Americans. So in America, we have no idea what health is. We can say we do, but we spend the most amount of money on medications. We can check the resources. It's over 65% of all drugs sold, period, are through the United States of America, but we only make up like 5% of, maybe it's 5% of GDP. But the point is, we make up 5%, we spend 65%. So that's more than any other country, than all the other countries combined.
And that's on prescription medication.
That's on all medication.
All medication.
I believe all medication. Mm-hmm. If it's on just prescription, that's asinine. The way we're living now in America, it's over 5 out of 6 now. I give this talk all the time to soon-to-be new patients, you know, trying to teach people about what health is, and and grow the business. And I've got to fix a problem and solve a problem for people. And that problem are their unknowns and their trajectory, and it all comes back down to health. Mm-hmm. Because if I asked you, and I do this when I do dinner with the docs, or lunch and learns, where I go to businesses and speak, I inevitably ask the question, what is health?
Yeah.
What is your greatest asset? People tell me health, and I go, what is health then?
Yeah.
And then I let people answer. What would you say health is?
So when I think of health, for me personally, I think that this is just like proximity bias, just because it's something that I do. I automatically think of physical fitness, right? So how my body functions, I would say athletically. That may be a misnomer, but how your body looks, how your body functions, both inside and out. So I think the physical aspect is really important. I think a second thing would be mental health. So stress management, sleep habits that ultimately manifest in emotional health. And then thirdly, I would say spiritual health, which there's some overlap with mental and spiritual for some people, and it's hard to kind of create a concrete definition for that. But just off the top of my head, if you ask me what health is, I would say physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
Okay, that's good. And then is there a way to quantify that? That might be too long of an answer.
I don't know. There may be. Speaking specifically to Sarah's question that she asked, which was again the most underrated aspect of health, I sincerely think it's the mental side, because I would be willing to get that when you told the listeners, hey, you guys ruminate on this for a minute, just think of what your working definition of health is in your own head. I would say that probably 100% of them immediately went to something physical. So even if it's quantitative or not, just something that has to do with the body, how the body looks, how the body performs, how the body sleeps, how the body eats, whatever it is, but it has to do something there. And I would be willing to bet that 100% of them, again, said something physical. And of those 100%, I would say probably, just throwing an arbitrary number out there, I would say maybe a third thought anything mental.
Okay.
Just based on different discussions that I've had with people and stuff, because when you talk about health and what it is, so many people neglect the mental or emotional side of things. I think, like for me, working with people and their nutrition, we talk about stress management all the time, and I have several clients that one of the first things we have to do is manage their mindset, because if they're not in an appropriate emotional or mental state, they're not going to make progress. It doesn't matter what type of foods you throw at them, what type of sleep optimization techniques you give, what type of exercise programs, all of that is essentially void if you're not mentally stable, so to speak, or have some type of I guess I would say like emotional resiliency going forward. If you get stressed too easily, that starts a hormonal cascade that is almost impossible to overcome with nutrition and training alone. So I think, to answer Sarah's question, the most underrated aspect of health is definitely the emotional or mental side of things, for sure, for me.
I mean, you did say the word, and I live and die by this definition practically. Mm-hmm. But when I give talks, it's all right. I ask people what is health. People tell me, I'm look good if wow, that was good. That was a bit dyslexic. I'm healthy if I'm feeling good, or I'm healthy if in our fitness industry endeavors, it's definitely if you look good.
Sure.
You have six-pack abs, you're jacked, and you're healthy for sure. But then I inevitably ask them, that's great. That's what a lot of people say. But hey, by a show of hands, how many people, and you guys can do this at home, please do. 4 or 5 people, they raise their hand. And I say, can you have stage 3 or 4 cancer and not feel anything? And inevitably the answer is
yes.
Right. So of course you can. But what stage of cancer is that? Is that the beginning stage, or is that like, we're at the end? It's at the end, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously they're not healthy, and it took decades for that to occur. So health is not how you feel, because you can have stage 4 cancer. You can have an ablation on your nerves to any said organ, and you're not going to feel anything, and it's not going to function.
It's interesting that you say that, because I never really put 2 and 2 together, because I would probably say that I'm guilty of one of those people that says health is predicated on how I feel. If I feel healthy, understandably so. There's, obviously being in this line of work enough, I know that there are metrics under the table, so to speak, that we can take a look at that are more indicative of health and just how you feel. But generally, that's kind of like a widely accepted, understanding is if I feel good, then I must be healthy.
Yeah.
And you never really think about, even though you hear numerous stories, or at least I do on, unfortunately, a regular basis about, my grandfather or my aunt or my brother's, wife or whomever had cancer and they felt fine, but they went to the doctor for another completely unrelated problem, did a routine check, found something that was potentially dangerous, found out it was, a malignant tumor, and then they were dead within a month. And a month prior, they felt perfectly fine. So
Right.
I definitely can relate to you saying that, that how you feel is not completely indicative of how healthy you are, which I think that most people are probably guilty of that, right? That seems common.
Yeah. Most people, almost all of them, with a very small exception. So there's ways to quantify. There's ways to quantify the things that we do. Health is not merely the absence of disease, but it's like total spiritual something, health, well-being. Anyways, it's the optimal function of your body.
And speaking specifically to the paradigm or the group of people that I work with, I again work with a student athlete body of people, and their definition of health is obviously performance based. I'm healthy if I can perform at my sport or whatever I'm getting ready to do. So I think that one thing that I see all the time that's kind of ironic is me being in shape and looking in shape can be completely different things to people. Sometimes when I look the best, my performance and health are the worst, and then vice versa. Sometimes when I don't look my best, my performance and my overall health and well-being are through the roof comparatively. Because in a sport like bodybuilding, there's an old saying in bodybuilding that the person who's going to win is the one who's closest to death, which is an unfortunate reality when you're on the stage, when you're depleted, dehydrated. Some people use chemical enhancements and different pharmaceuticals to rid themselves of water and get their body fat as low as humanly possible. So when people see me and I'm preparing for a show, if I ever make a comment to an endurance athlete, like one of my cross-country runners, and I say something along the lines of, "Oh man, I could never do what you do, I'm so out of shape," they almost get they think I'm like compliment fishing. And they'll say, "Well, that's ridiculous. You're in shape. Look at you. You have an 8-pack." Even though looking in shape and being in shape are completely different things. And I think that you can there's parallelism with health. Just because you look healthy doesn't mean that you are healthy. And how many individuals have we known that have dropped dead because of different pathogens, and it's not anything related to how they look. They look completely fine. I mean, I know a myriad of people that, going back to the one you mentioned earlier with cancer, say, "I know so and so died of cancer, and we never even knew they had it. They seemed perfectly fine, or they looked perfectly fine."
Yeah.
So there's not a direct correlation with how you look and how healthy you are. Obviously, there is some relative connection there, of course, but just because you look to be the healthiest person in the room or you look to have the best performance doesn't mean you do.
Right. The biggest things that I'm bringing to my clinics is this tech junkie kind of side of the medical field, which is going to be very fun. I've implemented it on myself, and I'm highly encouraging the No Excuse Nation and all of your athletes to jump on board as well. We're going to dive heavily into heart rate variability, which is, as of right now, has been for decades, but is the gold standard for how do you determine function of your body. Function entirely relies upon your body's ability to adapt to stress in your life. We don't even have to say stress is a great word, but for most people out there, they're going to get the wrong definition or connotation to it. Stress is really just things on your body, and it can be physical stress, it can be mechanical stress. Like, I specialize in spines, right? Like, the number one go-to doc for spinal correction. What we do is better than neurosurgeons fixing your spine. It's not invasive, which saves so many repeat surgeries, and just quality of life is astronomically higher when you have a healthy spine. So obviously, I'm always talking about the spine But the reason I fell in love with the spine is because of neurology, and neurology is what dictates function of your body. Because again, it's your body's ability to adapt. If I smack your hand or cut your hand, and you don't know and you can't feel it, how are you going to react to protect that cut, right? I mean, we'll go into detail into that, but incorporating heart rate variability, because it's heart rate variability requires your body's autonomic nervous system, that fight or flight system, to the subconscious part of your body to react appropriately. And if you can't react appropriately, then you can't adapt to anything, including performance. I was talking about heart rate variability and explaining things. So the reason we track objective measures of function is because as your spinal posture and your spinal health becomes better, you function better, and more importantly, the game of inches and hairs when it comes to elite performance on the health and on the actual performance side for sports. That's where we play. That's the area that we play in. So what I wanted to explain real quick is that you can have issues in your spine and not know about it. And here's why. Because let's say, for example, you cut your hand. Okay, you're gonna you should feel it if you have the proper signal coming from your nerves that transmits a pain signal, which is a different tract of your spinal cord, and then B, the ability for your body to perceive and actually feel the cut itself. Okay, and then you have all kinds of other neurological systems that send messengers there to clean up the debris and everything, right? But that's just one part of your spinal nervous system, okay? And let's say you lose function of your pinky, okay? That can be a certain nerve in your neck, okay? Look up brachial plexus, you'll get a nice diagram of what nerve that actually is. You can have an injury there, you can have an injury down here. You can also have an injury, let's say you want to measure the function of your nerve coming out of your neck. You can tell if it's functioning healthfully or not because of another function of your nervous system, which is your body's ability to contract muscle tissue. Okay, that comes from the nerves in your neck. Speaking about the hand only, right? The nerves for your legs come from your lower back. Okay, they exit your spinal cord at your lower back. If I push down your hand, your ability to contract your bicep is controlled by the nerves in the brachial plexus. Brachial plexus again being a couple groups of nerves like this that come out of your lower cervical spine. Okay, if you completely cut that nerve, what happens to your ability to contract your biceps?
Can't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Go slip.
And so you can measure that the level of function of that nerve through through your body's ability to contract your muscle. How would you see that on a day-to-day basis? Let's say you're lifting biceps one day. How many times have you had athletes be like, I don't know, I'm just not strong today? Do you think that could have anything to do with the fact that you slept like this all night and it's just your right arm? Okay, you'd have to be very aware to realize that it's just your right arm when you're usually doing bicep curls like this and you're usually doing them together. However, you can do that, okay? So you get an adjustment and you're like, oh crap, I cannot tell you, and you've experienced this as well. How many personal records do you set after you go to the chiropractor?
Tons.
Right, and even right in the beginning when you first start getting adjusted, okay, it's because you're back online. That's the easiest way to think of it. You can also have loss of lung function from these same nerves. Not obviously the ones that exit here and are going into your arm, but the ones that exit the same area, but then go down into the back of your lungs or the front of your heart, control your heart rate. You can also have those issues coming from, excuse me. You can also have those issues coming from the nerves in the upper part of your neck, okay, that cause heart and digestive issues. So when you get in a car crash, you can have tons of digestive issues, concussive issues. We won't even go into the plethora of lists that he talked about before when he said there was a plethora of things that can be wrong there. So the important thing is we're going to end this show with things you can take away. And one of those things is you guys can send pictures. We're going to take front shots like this, A to P, anterior to posterior. You're going to take a shot like this, nice and relaxed. You're going to look straight ahead, have someone take a picture with their camera or set it on the wall or a windowsill and set the timer, take a picture front like this, nice and relaxed.
Minimal clothing, correct, so we can see
so
different joints and
athletic
everything.
Clothing, if you're a male, shirt off so I can see, I need to see landmarks.
Okay.
Okay, unless you're so well built that no matter what you put on, like Charlie, you can see all the landmarks. But I need to be able to see right here, the shoulders. Obviously, I can see the head and the ears usually, unless of course you have long hair or a hat on, or I guess it would be like a beanie or something. But I need to be able to see that. Tight shorts, okay? Because I need to be able to see the hips. I need to be able to see where the hips actually are. Since I'm not there in person, I can't palpate and feel exactly where your hip joints are, okay? And then you need to take shots from the side as well. So you're gonna look directly this way, okay? And you're gonna get a shot from the side. If you really want to, you can do a shot from the back, same thing, nice and relaxed, and then a shot looking this way, 90 degrees. But you only need 2 are mandatory, okay? So you send those pictures to me, and then I can analyze them for you. The next follow-up is if you have issues with your spine that we can see from an external position, you clearly have the stuff that's going on underlying that. And many of you already know, the pictures are just going to be, I forget what the concept's called, but they're purely for fun because you already know you have issues going on. Like if you're constantly like this, you already know you've got postural problems, aka spinal problems. Okay, so it's a guaranteed. I'm gonna be like, okay, who's the closest guy near you? If you're close to me, you can come see me. We got to get you some X-rays, see what's going on. You have no idea how much this is going to benefit you. That's the first takeaway. The other thing I want to talk about, takeaway number 2, is each week we want to do an article. Okay, so this week's article is 2013 Journal of Gerontology, discusses the number 1 factor that indicates and is correlated to strongly and heavily correlated to, which is hard to see in research when they say strongly indicative of or strongly correlated, is spinal alignment and your likelihood to be in a nursing home and have independence as you age. Okay, extremely highly correlated to your spinal health, your spinal alignment. And then what they did was they took the X-rays and they analyzed them. And if this is your sacrum, which is a joint in your pelvis basically, or in your butt, we'll just say it's in your butt, that pelvis, this is a side view, should be here, and then the top of your neck should be here. They should be right on top of each other, okay? So if they're not, every few millimeters that your head is forward in front of your butt, so you'd be leaning forward like this, basically, isn't in the further it is forward, the worse. They also did a ROC analysis on it, an ROC, which means that not only is it heavily correlated, but the further forward you have it, the worse it is. Does that make sense? So 1 inch is worse than 2 inches. 2 inches is like astronomically bad. Just a few millimeters is bad. We see a ton of correction in patients where we take just a few millimeters of pressure off their spinal cord and complete symptoms are gone. We don't want to just stop there, right? Like just because your migraines are gone that you've had for 17 years is awesome, yeah, but don't stop there, okay? Keep going as much as you can, then we'll get you back to a baseline where we can just maintain you, right? And you do stuff at home, but we'll get into that in another episode. The last thing we wanted to cover, number 3 takeaway, is I wanted our resident nutrition expert here to tell us. I have an idea, but I want him to answer what is the number 1 supplement that our No Excuse Nation can either begin taking if they aren't taking, or this is a perfect weekly reminder to make sure you're being consistent with these supplements.
All right, so anytime I think about supplementation, and especially when we throw out superlatives like best, right? Obviously, it's an individualized client scenario for each type of supplement. There are very, very few non-negotiables that someone has to take, because I think that pretty much every metric can be measured through blood work or performance or whatever to find out exactly what each person makes or needs to take. Regardless, if I was to go through my analytical steps to figure out what the best supplement is, or the number 1, I would think number 1 would be most effective. So what's gonna give you the biggest bang for your buck?
Okay.
Make a list there. Number 2, what's gonna be cost effective? So are you paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a supplement or supplements that are important or whatever? And then number 3 is kind of mashing those two together and being ROI, so the return on investment. And I think that the top of all those lists would have to be probably collagen. I think some type of collagen protein would be my number one, based on anecdotal evidence with myself, based on research, based on different populations that I've worked with and the results that they've seen. And I think ultimately too, based on diversity of the product and what a collagen protein can do for someone.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, especially with that last one. That's a good one. So here's the takeaway, not a takeaway. Here's a giveaway that I'm agreeing to on live. Is we're gonna give away some books. We have a bunch of books on collagen.
We are. Okay, I did not know that. This is new. We're giving away books.
Books on collagen and bone broth. That's another great thing you can start doing, and it's a way that in addition to buying the collagen supplement, you can also do it yourself. How the hell do you do that? Is a great question. You start cooking with the whole animal. We'll dive into that, but the book also dives into that. So we'll give away a couple books. Not sure how many yet, but we have plenty. So we'll give away a couple of those books.
Great.
All right.
So going forward, I'm sure that people are going to want to ask us questions for the show. I'm sure that people are going to want to know, how do they enter the giveaway for the books? So the best way to contact both of us, I believe, is through Instagram, correct? At least speaking for myself. So for those of you that want to contact me or not sure who I am, or this is their first time hearing of me, you can go to @NoExcuseCharlie. That's my Instagram handle. That's where I do the majority of my communication, at least for people that I don't know. Obviously, we do things through the website and through emails and such, but for you trying to get in contact with me, best way would be @NoExcuseCharlie, which is my Instagram handle. And I believe, Dr. Ryan, Instagram is also the best way to contact you, correct?
Yeah, and we'll put links at the corners of the video. At Dr. Ryan Livingston, so DRRYAN, so that's a double R there, Livingston. That is a good way to contact me. And then on our Twitter, our Instagram handles, you'll also see links to other things like our emails, etc., and our booking calendars, etc.
So we'll put those in the show notes below the video.
Yeah, we can do that too. Perfect.
Cool. So, Doc, appreciate you coming on. It was great having you this week. I think we had some good discussions. Yes. And I think this was kind of a four-way to some even better discussions. So we appreciate you guys tuning in, and submit some more questions for next week. We'll give you some avenues how to do that, and we will talk to you again soon.
Peace.